All right, so shall we move on to How to Marry a Millionaire?
Yes, let's talk about How to Marry a Millionaire. Let's spoil it. Let's spoil any Marilyn movies we talk about and anything else we talk about.
Excellent. Um,
I get to summarize now because you've
it's
done
your
it
turn.
too.
You do it.
So three women played by Marilyn Monroe, Lauren Bacall and Betty Grable,
Yeah.
um, rent a flat in New York so that they can find millionaires to marry, and things don't go quite as planned. Lauren Bacall is the real ringleader. She's kind of the older, worldly one who's trying to keep. She's the Jane Russell of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. But she's a little more hard edged.
Yeah.
And then Marilyn and Betty Grable are both kind of the dumb blondes in this one.
Yeah.
Am I saying her name? Yes, I'm saying her name right, Betty Grable. And that's kind of it. And, at the end, there's a happily ever after because it's this kind of a movie.
Yeah, this is 1953, so it's the same year as Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, though it came out later in the year.
Yeah, and I have a quick comment in that as a kid, I was interested in Marilyn Monroe movies, and I always got stuck because a lot of them are billed as rom-coms. 7-Year Itch says
Yeah.
it's a rom-com. 7-Year Itch is not a rom-com to me.
I
Gentlemen
can
Prefer
see how you'd bill
Blondes
it
is
that way,
not
but
really. I mean, they
Gentlemen
get
Prefer
men at
Blondes is a
the end.
musical.
Yeah, you get the men at the end. How to Marry a Millionaire is probably the closest to an actual rom-com that
Yeah.
Marilyn Monroe is in. So that's kind of.
Yeah, 7-Year Itch, I can see you bill how people would bill it as a rom-com, but
There's
I feel
nothing
like that's
romantic about it to me. Like it's like what's romantic in that movie? I mean, does
anyways.
just putting Marilyn Monroe in it make it
Well, we
romantic?
have to talk about the most important part of this movie to
Okay, what is
me,
it?
which is that the apartment that they move into, the inside of the door has a door handle
In
in the middle of the door. It's
Theo's
not on the
not.
left side. I was just watching it, minding my own business, watching this movie, and they open the door and I'm looking at it and I'm like, where did she just grab the handle from? What is happening? And then later on, just we're going through the movie and there's been a couple of other little incidences like that, nothing as silly as that. And I'm like, you know what? Rich people are crazy. They put handles in the middle of their doors.
True. In
Anyways,
a way, I might love Marilyn's character in this movie more than in Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, but
I can see that.
she's another dumb blonde that's not actually dumb.
Yeah. She doesn't
She's
wear her glasses. Like the whole shtick is that she has glasses that she doesn't wear and she's quite blind without them.
Yeah, it doesn't quite make sense because later she can recognize that man. Maybe she has extra man powers, even though she's not wearing her glasses when she
Yeah.
meets him.
Yeah.
And yet she's holding a book upside down in front. There's a little logic dips in there.
Yeah.
I love her clothes that she's wearing in this. I don't know. I just kind of like it's not a musical.
It's weird. So the one thing that might work in the 50s, and I'm not sure if there's other movies, like I feel like I've seen a few other movies from this decade that kind of do this. If you see a character like that now who can't see and needs to do the glasses, often I feel like that's not the main character anymore.
Yeah.
Like you get more down to earth characters, but if you're going to see a goofball like that, they're a side character or something. And technically Marilyn isn't like she's I don't know the second or third lead or something in this movie, but she is one of the leads and she's Marilyn Monroe, so she's a very pretty person, and she gets to be the one who's kind of fumbling around without glasses. And I just feel like it's fun because it's Marilyn. It's fun because even in today's world, I don't feel like they tend to do that with the main characters very often. Like you're going to see Seth Rogen do that, but not Katherine Heigl, right?
Right.
Like, so it's like you don't get to see women do that very much. And I kind of appreciate that Marilyn gets to walk in. Like she walked into a wall at one point and you just burst into laughter.
It's just because it's Marilyn Monroe walking into a wall.
Yeah, like it's just very silly.
That. Yeah, she has a vulnerability. I think we talked about this with Don't Bother to Knock, where and I think you'll see this in some of the upcoming movies we're watching. I don't see her ever playing, like, if she'd lived longer, I don't see her playing a villain, or maybe they would have let her, but it's hard because she just comes off as so sweet and vulnerable in some ways. And then to have her walking into walls and and stuff like that. I feel it's funny to me that in a way that it shows the power of her that she's so famous when these are not like like she's in Gentlemen Prefer Blonde, she's with Jane Russell, who has some great moments too. And this Lauren Bacall is, I would say, a bit like a bigger part of the story. Betty
She's
Grable
kind of the
even
main
kind of
lead.
gets a more of a story. I mean, Marilyn Monroe's character. Oh, she's with that some kind of Middle Eastern character who's wearing a false eye patch.
Yeah, that's a very odd character.
And then instead of him, she falls in love with this guy who seems to be having tax problems, who eventually is the one that's like, you look like, lady, you look beautiful with the glasses on or off. Don't worry about it.
Right, and which is what seems to get her, which is very silly. Like I forget what we were talking about. Like we were talking about character arcs, and it's like the characters have character arcs in this movie more than like probably Gentlemen. Well, I don't know, Gentlemen, like maybe more than Gentlemen Prefer Blondes.
It's hard to say.
Yeah, and it's like, but no matter what, in this or Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, they're really like that's the character arc is that moment, and it's like that's.
Whereas like Betty Grable goes off to Maine.
Right.
To what she thinks is an Elks Lodge convention, but is actually like this married man trying to like set her up, I think, and falls in love with a ranger who she thinks owns the forest that he's looking over and lives in a shack. And in the end, she gets married to him. And I feel like there's a little more there than Marilyn's part got. And Lauren Bacall's character has this whole thing where for some reason she's decided that, why have I blanked on his name?
You thinking of Cameron Mitchell?
Yes, Cameron Mitchell, who later becomes a horrible alcoholic, and Red Letter Media makes fun of him all the time.
Yes.
She decides that he's poor because Betty Grable met him at a deli, I guess.
Well, he also dresses kind of funny. Like he doesn't really dress in nice suits or anything, and he looks kind of.
She has this weakness for poor men is her problem. So she keeps trying to marry the William Powell character, get with him, who's way too old for her. And they don't seem to have a connection either. They have like a friend connection, but not a romantic connection.
Yeah, they're friends with each other.
And so she has this whole thing, but Marilyn, it's just like she has glasses. Like it's, God, where's the alternate history where Marilyn Monroe gets better parts? Like,
it's interesting. I'm looking at the Wikipedia for this because I don't know much about this movie. Oddly, apparently, Nicole Kidman, at least as of 2007, owns the rights to this film. I don't really understand, which is interesting. But like looking at it, just at the poster and all this, and it's like, it's just funny because like in a way, it is just these three schlubs that they're kind of with. I don't know. There's something interesting about the cast.
I mean, it goes back to my problem that I was talking about with Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. It's an even bigger problem for me with 7 Year Itch, which is that like these I mean, on one hand, like, yeah, money isn't everything, blah blah blah, but these gorgeous women keep getting. I mean, and actually, Cameron Mitchell looks good, and the guy who plays the ranger is very handsome.
Yeah.
But it's like these women who get what they want. Can't always get what you want, but if you try, sometimes you find you might get what you need. But it just feels, I think about Gold Diggers of 1933, where they got rich men, like they got what they wanted at the end of the movie. And this, where it's like, they learned their lesson and they found the man that was right for them. And that's okay. It's fine. It's just a little bit, I don't know. I wish I'd seen a Marilyn Monroe movie where I guess she gets the guy at the end of Gentlemen Prefer Blondes that she wants, but he's kind of a, he's not that much of a prize. Let's be honest. He's rich and he seems nice, and you know what? That's fine. But this is the movies. I want something more.
Yes, yeah, no, I get what you're saying. It's kind of interesting to me thinking about this movie because, like, a part of the reason it doesn't work for me, I think, is that like we're telling three stories at the same time, and like you get enough of Grable's story to sort of understand her falling for the ranger, and then Marilyn Monroe falls for the tax evasion guy just because of timing. So like you get one character and then not the other. And meanwhile, Lauren Bacall is like the one in the apartment trying to really make things happen. So then you lose her for those bits.
Yeah.
Like she kind of has the most arc of all of them, but like it doesn't quite all. I think the plot might be why.
You wish you'd seen the women more together, because they really, after the second half of the film, they're not really. They go off on their own, and it's
we've recently watched 9 to 5, and I have recently watched First Wives Club. And both of those are movies where it's three women in the lead roles, and it's about kind of relationships in men in some cases, in not so much 9 to 5, but in First Wives Club. And watching it, it's like watching this and sort of thinking of those, it's like in those are buddy movies. Like 9 to 5 is a buddy movie, kind of.
Gentlemen Prefer Blondes, they're kind. I mean, when things
really
go
a buddy
south
movie.
for Marilyn's character, Jane Russell is there to help her, and they take care of each other.
Yeah, and like in How to Marry a Millionaire, the thing that's missing, like going into it, I thought it was a musical too, just because I've so often heard it put next to Gentlemen Prefer Blondes. And after I finished watching it, and it wasn't until just now, I'm like, that's what's missing. It's not a musical.
Yeah.
So like even though the plot for Gentlemen Prefer Blondes is similar, it's not that much better or worse. Like if I really thought about it, maybe I'd come up with like a good thought of like the plots compared to each other. How to Marry a Millionaire doesn't really have the fun or the pizzazz that Gentlemen Prefer Blonde does. There's some nice colors and there's some fun story moments, and like I like a bunch of the acting. Like Lauren Bacall makes a joke about the African queen and the guy in that being, handsome and good looking or whatever, who was her husband at the time, Humphrey Bogart.
Right.
And that's a cute little moment, but like there's like those moments, but then I don't know, the plot doesn't quite, it's the same as like you watching a Marvel movie. Like plot kind of just is what it is, and there's various degrees of how well done or not it is, and this How to Marry a Millionaire kind of falls in the middle for me, where like the plot's fun, the acting's fun, like it's a good movie, but it's just not really, I think it's one that gets me.
Right. I think it's worth watching.
Totally.
Monkey Business is pretty much not worth watching unless you die hard into things, whereas
unless you're doing what we're doing.
It's the movie itself isn't worth watching. The actors are worth watching, and also it has some amazing footage of New York and Maine. Like it looks beautiful, or wherever. I think wherever's standing in for Maine, but like the exteriors were beautiful. It was a pretty movie, and the doorknobs are in the middle, and so you just need to watch it for these reasons.
Yeah, and like even Cameron Mitchell, like the Cameron Mitchell, and I think Rory Calhoun is. I was just looking him up because I think I've seen him in something else.
He plays the ranger that Betty Grable falls in love with.
Right. I think he's in like some movie I've seen, but I can't place him. And then even what the other guys in this, like they're fun too. Like it's not, I mean, the women are obviously the reason we're watching this, and they're the really strong roles, but like the men get some stuff to do too, and it's kind of fun. William Powell is particularly, he plays a sort of depressed millionaire pretty well. And like even at the very end of the film, when Cameron Mitchell reveals that he's like actually richer than William Powell,
right,
to everybody, pulls out like a wad of
$1,000 bills,
which is that a real thing? I feel like that's not a real thing, but anyways, like he pulls that out and the three women faint. Like, it's got those fun moments. So like, even though ultimately like I kind of end up lukewarm on it, like there's enough here that like it was fun to watch. I can't see myself really going to watch it again for any reason other than, research or something, but like it's definitely worth a watch.